NBC's Andrea Mitchell has been attending the State Department press briefings frequently since the Trump administration began, and has been pressing Tammy Bruce, particularly on Israel's genocidal campaign in Gaza, as well as its starvation campaign and the collapse of its aid distribution project. Here's an example just from yesterday of the way that she's been going back and forth with Tammy Bruce.
Andrea.
Let me just follow up on that, because no one should jump to conclusions. We all have reporters on the ground. Israel has not let U.S.-based reporters in, but we have partners there and staff members there who have been courageously there since October 7th doing this job. And if, unlike other war zones in Ukraine, in Iraq and elsewhere where U.S. reporters have always been in Vietnam, this is the first conflict where we have not been able to go in except with IDF escorts. What he said was not just misleading reports in the fog of war. We all know what happens in some instances, and we're not sure of these cases. But to suggest that the press reports fostered anti-Semitism, which led to the death of the two embassy people here in Washington and to other anti-Semitic attacks in this country, is hyperbole beyond what is normal diplomatic practice. And as a journalist and as a member of this press corps, I think it's deeply offensive for someone who has...
Well, I don't speak for Ambassador Huckabee. I understand, Andrea. I know. I understand. And I understand the depth of your work and the work, Andrea. I understand your work, the depth of your work, the work of people who cover war, and the dangers that exist. I don't speak for Ambassador Huckabee. I'm not going to parse what he has said, but what I can tell you is that inevitably, as we have all watched, the kind of Jew hatred and anti-Semitism that has been promulgated through media has been nonstop, even after October 7th, and that if you weren't involved in that and others who are not involved in that, that's not who he's speaking about. I would argue that it would be naive to suggest that the Jew hatred that, whether it's through social media, through fake news, through the rhetoric regarding Israel, through the years, has not developed or perpetuated anti-Semitism.
Can I follow up on the distribution of food, though? Because
certainly.
Let me just say that there is widespread criticism and actual self-criticism by the consulting group that was supporting the foundation, which is backed out of it, that the distribution system was not as professional as either the UN, or the World Food Program and other people who are used to working in this area, and that there should have been more distribution points where people would not have been told to line up. And
Andrea, you know what? But these questions now, these are critiques of an environment that we've talked about regularly every day.
But let me just say,
every time I'm up here, it is this critique of, I say 7 million meals have been distributed, but it would have been, but not for you. It should have been those guys over there or these people over here. Over the last 3 years with the UN or the World Food Program, no one has distributed 7 million meals to Gaza.
Many hundreds of thousands of people in Israel, as well as the Hamas, the families of the people being held by Hamas, are protesting this food decision. The former defense minister criticized these decisions. There's plenty of internal.
Well, I'm sorry, Andrea. I understand. I understand.
So, two different avenues there to unpack. The first one, she's standing up for journalists, saying it's unfair to say that the media is responsible for the embassy staffers getting killed.
Yeah.
What'd you make of that back and forth?
I mean, first of all, it's just extraordinary that it's Andrea Mitchell in there, and even this administration is much more deferential to her than they would be, maybe to you, for example.
we appreciate the depth of your work.
Yeah, we
She's
appreciate it.
79. I just looked it up.
I mean, and God bless her for being in there, mixing it up. She doesn't have to be doing any of this. So it's kind of wild to see that. And I think it's emblematic of, you see her, you see Piers Morgan, you see, German and French and other leaders who have gotten to a point where they're, okay, this is ridiculous. And, the media point, Andrea Mitchell obviously is like a mainstream media institution. The idea that they have not been sufficiently pro-Israel is so utterly preposterous as to not even be worth like dignifying arguing. Like it's just so absurd. Even to this day, the type of headlines, you cover the Washington Post thing where they put out this obsequious apology because they only had 3 witnesses to this massacre. And how dare we not give enough credence to Israel's complaint.
CNN came out last night with 17 witnesses.
Wow.
17 eyewitnesses.
Wow.
That's saying that it was Israel. And the Washington Post still, we're so sorry we didn't give proper weight to this Israeli denial of the thing that everybody saw happen.
Yeah. So, I think the fact that you have even an Andrea Mitchell who's in there like, this is ridiculous bullshit and going back and forth, I think that is very indicative of the moment that we're in right now.
And the second set of questions goes to the first point. It's not the media that has created this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation crisis. It's Israel that produced this. Like, it's not the messenger that you need to shoot. It's the IDF that is defending Gaza Humanitarian Foundation that is shooting all the people who are coming to get aid. And you keep seeing the administration and Israeli supporters saying that they delivered 7 million meals. She says, what do you want from us? Nobody had figured out how to get aid in, and now all of a sudden we've gotten 7 million meals in this week. And it's like, well, first of all, that's not true that nobody had figured out how to get aid in.
Yeah, they had quite an effective distribution system.
Yeah, the aid agencies were getting aid in. It was
and
hard
people
for them
weren't
to
getting shot.
It was hard for them to get through the crossings because the Israelis would sometimes allow no trucks, sometimes 10, sometimes 100. But once they got in, the aid was getting distributed, and you weren't seeing chaotic scenes. But now you are, and so she keeps highlighting this 7 million figure. But if you do the math on that, there's 2 million people plus in Gaza. That means and they're talking about over a week. 7 million for a week. That's 3.5 meals per week per person, and there is no aid coming from anywhere else.
Right.
So it's not as if this is just supplementing what people are already getting.
Yeah.
Like that's what people are getting, and that's on average.
If you take their numbers at face value.
If you take the numbers at face value,
that's being the most charitable to them as you possibly could be.
Aid agencies say you shouldn't, and because of the way they're chaotically delivering it, the strong are getting most of it. So maybe some people are getting 20 meals a week, and most everybody else is getting 0.
Yeah.
And they're not the kind of nutritious meals. Jeremy Lafredo for Dropsite News just went to an UNRWA warehouse in Jordan. Maybe we can play that clip next week. And he tours it, and there's all this food expiring, but it's very precisely regimented for people who are facing malnutrition and for people who are only getting this in their diet. And so it's very precisely formulated to get all of the calories you need, all of the balanced diet you need. If you look at what Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is bringing in, it's like pasta, right? It's like it's not what aid organizations who've been doing this for a very long time would put together if it was up to them. So meanwhile, the isolation and the political problems facing the Netanyahu government, both internationally and domestically, continue. We can put this next element up on the screen. French dock workers are refusing to load machine gun ammo destined for Israel's army. This comes as Spain is cutting military contracts, as there's a lot of pressure on the government of Ireland to abide by its own laws, which say that weapons are not supposed to be shipped through their airspace. And so at every kink in the system, there's increasingly there's going to be pressure.
I mean, here's what I would say. I think Chris Hedges was saying this to Hassan this week. The leaders are not going to do, we're this far along. The leaders are not going to end this genocide. So it is up to actions like this to cut off the supply. And so to see these French dock workers standing in solidarity, it's quite significant. And we need much more action like that around the world.
Meanwhile, a very interesting coalition of bedfellows is coming together to put pressure on Netanyahu. So the Haredi party is threatening to kind of dissolve the Netanyahu coalition. This is the the leading party for the ultra-Orthodox section of the Israeli public, and it's all over whether or not kind of Haredi men and women, ultra-Orthodox men and women would have to serve just like everybody else in Israel. Every other Jewish citizen of Israel, has to serve in the IDF. And what's fascinating about this, and Amir Tabon, also in Haaretz, has a very useful kind of analysis that can explain how the politics of this are all shaking up. But basically, there's a fundamental contradiction that can't be resolved. One is that Netanyahu, Smotrich, Ben-Gvir want a never-ending war to realize what they see as a once-in-several-generations opportunity to fully expel the Palestinians from Gaza. Like that's on the one hand. On the other hand is the material problem of not enough soldiers to carry out this genocidal task. Reconciling those two requires the ultra-Orthodox, there's no other way to get there.
Yeah.
Requires the ultra-Orthodox to participate in the military. And they don't want to do that. So what they are now, they're not saying out loud that this is what they're doing, but there is a belief among some in the ultra-Orthodox community that if the war ends, the pressure on them to participate in the military goes away because the pressure is being driven by the war.
Right.
And so a lot of people in Israel are saying Netanyahu's not falling because of the Gaza war. He's falling because of this internal dispute, within Israeli society, an internal religious dispute. And that's true on a surface level, but it's only true because the war is making it something that can't be avoided.
That's right. And we can put Shail's tweet here up on the screen. He's talking about Netanyahu was apparently recorded saying that the reason he fired Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi were because they were obstacles to allowing Haredi men that exemption from the army. This was a recording appeared on Channel 13. Netanyahu saying, "We need to save not only the state of Israel, but also the Torah world. That is what I believe in, God willing. That is what will be done. To do this, we need time to pass the law properly, so it cannot be challenged. The law allowing this exemption, we had huge obstacles that we removed. When the defense minister is against you, the chief of staff is against you, you can't move forward. Now we can." So, exposing sort of how critical this fault line within Israeli society is. And the particular issue right now, obviously, is military service, but there's a broader significant longer-term demographic issue, which the ultra-Orthodox have the largest families. So much of the demographics of the state are shifting towards being ultra-Orthodox, but don't participate in the military.
Basically don't work.
Yeah, and so the state really supports them. In the U.S. lingo, they're the ultimate welfare queens. And, if you have a shrinking population that is of the more liberal in Israeli context, secular variety, to support this growing ultra-Orthodox population, you're going to have long-term, very significant demographic issues so long as you continue to deny basic rights to Palestinians who also have large families.
Yeah.
And perfectly willing to work, but that's off the table as a solution apparently.
Right, and which before October 7th, Palestinians made up a huge portion of the labor force in Israel, crossing, mostly West Bank, but also Gaza as well. And there have been efforts to bring in Indian workers and so on that haven't worked remotely. Haven't worked remotely as well. The end of the Lebanon conflict, in the sense of having manpower in Lebanon, bought Netanyahu some time. It is classic Netanyahu that he doesn't have a solution to this irreconcilable problem, and so he's just trying to punt it forward.
Just trying to push it off.
Just one
It
more
works
week,
well for
one more
him.
day, one more week.
I mean, that's worked for him so
So
far.
far, yeah.
Last thing, let's go ahead and show this extraordinary footage, Ryan, and maybe you can explain what we're seeing here. This was posted by Dropsite News of these two men who recorded themselves trying to obtain food and coming under fire from the IDF machine guns firing over their heads here.
Yeah, and as you can hear in the background, these are gunshots. Let's be very careful here in our wording because we don't want to say anything that gets the IDF upset. These are gunshots coming from the Israeli positions. Like, bullets are emerging from Israeli weapons. But we can't know.
Let's allow an investigation to play out before we figure out what really happened.
We need an investigation to figure out how it is that the bullet exited the Israeli weapons. And
I bet Hamas tricked him into it.
And forwarded itself towards the Palestinians who were seeking this aid. But yeah, this is just another massacre, another debacle at an aid distribution site where they tell everybody come at this time, and basically first come, first serve.
Yeah.
So of course, when you have millions of people starving, you get chaos, and then they shoot at people.
And I believe they have, 4 distribution sites set up. Previously, during times when there was a more fully operational aid distribution network, you're talking about hundreds of sites scattered throughout the Gaza Strip. Now you have 4 sites in particular locations. It's a literal Hunger Games situation where if you were strong enough to trek the miles and miles you need to make it to one of those distribution sites, and then to basically fight your fellow Palestinians in order to grab a box of this not at all nutritious stuff, and brave being fired upon, those bullets exiting Israeli weapons, however that occurred. That's what they've set up here, and it is such a brutal and horrific and unconscionable system that even the Boston Consulting Group has decided this is too much for them. And we, of course, originally had the American mercenary who was at the head of this thing. Mm-hmm. He dropped out before it even was put into place because he was like, Jesus, this is beyond. This is bad. This is beyond what I am even willing to do. And now you have this completely soulless group of consultants who have also said, okay, we can't be involved with the quote-unquote Gaza Humanitarian Foundation.
Yeah, and they claimed that they were doing it pro bono. Then there's reporting that no, they're
getting
$1 million
millions
a month or $1 million a week or whatever it was. We'll see. But yeah, so it's an absolute hell on earth. It's like Squid Games. It's like,
yeah.
I mean, you go back and listen to what these guys are putting up with to try to get, a little bit of pasta in a box.
The video of the American mercenaries who are there, who are like, oh, here they come.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so disturbing. I was saying this to you before the show. There is no way that this policy unfolds of complete genocide and humiliation and dehumanization can unfold without all of the players involved just fundamentally not really believing Palestinians are human beings, which is why they get so mad at Miss Rachel.
And then for
humanizing them.
And then for the people who win the Squid Game and get one box, they smile, they take a picture of them and post it on Twitter, and all these pro-Israel accounts share it. Be like, look at what other adversary is feeding their enemies.
And Tammy Bruce goes up and brags, oh, look at all the
7
meals
million
we're
meals.
distributing. How can you complain about this?
Yeah. You complain we're not giving them food, now you complain that we're giving them food. We can't do anything right.
All right, guys, 2 quick things. Number 1, by popular demand, we are bringing back the monthly subscription. Number 2, you can get a month free, Ryan, by putting in that promo code BPFree at breakingpoints.com.
Yeah, and I think the most important reason to become a premium subscriber is just as an act of support for the show. It helps us do what we're doing. But if you're curious what the benefits are of doing it, take the free month, and you'll see you get the AMAs, you get the second half of the Friday show, you get the full show emailed to you earlier. It makes your life much better. Do it for a month at breakingpoints.com. BP free is a promo code. And if after a month your life isn't dramatically improved, you can just cancel. If it is, it's just $10 a month.
There you go.